guys, Thanksgiving is right on the horizon. What that typically means is a big old roast turkey. But what if you're not having a bunch of people over? A turkey might be a lot. So today I want to talk to you about an alternative in roast duck. But it is Thanksgiving, so I want to do something a little special with it. So let's get started. All right, we have our beautiful duck here. And today we're going to be working on deboning the duck. We're going to take off the thighs and the drumsticks. We're going to make a sausage out of them. And then we're going to stuff it inside of the duck. We're going to truss it up beautifully, and we're going to roast it in the oven. The French would call this a ballotine or a roulade. We're going to start by flipping our duck over so the spine is exposed up. Locate the spine and run your knife down one side of it. Now this is going to be like filleting a fish. You're going to slice, you're going to pull the meat away from you. You want to feel the knife cutting up against the bone the entire time. Now you're going to want to identify the joint bone here for the leg. Once you find it, pop it open. This will help disconnect it from the hip bone, and then again, slowly work in with the tip of your knife, holding the meat and slicing the meat back. Piece will be identifying the collarbone. Once you have it, disconnect the meat, cut underneath it as well, and using a lever motion, push it up until you feel the joint pop. Use a knife, disconnect it. Put the bones aside. Now you're looking at the chicken wing bone. Again, you're finding the joint just like you did with the hip. Once you identify it, you want to cut into it and work, pulling back and forth until you can expose the joint completely and cut it out. We're taking care not to cut the skin here. We're looking just to remove the bone while leaving as much meat behind as possible. Continue to remove the neck and the spine from one side of the body, and once you've finished, flip it over and continue the same process on the other side of the bird. Around the wings can be a little bit tricky, but take your time here using the tip of your knife. You can also use a paring knife and just carve around the bone, taking care not to puncture the skin, taking your time and then cutting the joint out. Remove the trunk and set it aside for stock making, and congratulations, you've just deboned your first duck. Now that our duck has been boned out, we're going to remove our thighs. First thing, we're going to clean this up a little bit, just a little bit. We're not going to throw out anything here. The fat we'll keep. We'll have to do a video on rendering sometime for that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to remove the thighs. You can see we have the breasts here, both sides, and then we have the thighs and drumsticks here. On both sides, you see a very clear separation. So what we're going to do here, in an effort to basically hold on to as much skin as possible, we're going to use our force to pull our meat away. Pull it away. We want to have as much skin as we can to work with here and cut away if we need to later. It's one of these kinds of things you definitely want to have more than less, for sure. So we're going to take our thigh and drumstick meat with the use of a food processor, or if you have a meat grinder, we're actually going to make a sort of sausage that we'll do with some garden herbs. For the time being, I'm going to roll this up and set this up here. Now, don't feel like you got to do all this in one day. This can be deboned, and these thighs can be made into a sausage all in one day. Keep this in the refrigerator, both of them, and you can stuff it inside of your duck and roast it the following day. Very simple for this. You're going to find the joint. You can see the natural place where it bends right there is the knee. We're going to go in with our knife and just cut through it. Okay, with the thigh, you'll see this bone that runs down here. Come into the knife, go right down to it. Cut on either side of the bone. Lift with the knife, pull back. Lift with the knife, pull back. Come in with the bottom of the knife, right through, and there's just a little piece left. Carve away from yourself all the time. You never want to catch yourself. Then press this up here, down through. Get as much meat off of here as we can for our sausage. Don't throw any of your bones away. Make a stock with these, okay? And this is the same way. You can use the same preparation for chicken thighs as well. Now onto the drumsticks. It's a very similar process. Cut this chunk off here. Again, this piece here can go into our fat pile over here that we'll render down and use it as a cooking medium later. Any of the chopped up meat can go right into a bowl. Put this up on its end, use your knife to carve down. This is the same technique you would use if you're doing a roasted drumstick for chicken, turkey, goose, duck, after it's been cooked. Real easy. Any really big, obnoxious Tendons, we don't want those. They're just gonna gum everything up inside of the food processor. These, you don't want these. Taking the opportunity to enjoy the last bits of autumn here, I'm collecting some sage from the garden that we'll incorporate into the sausage. All right, so we have our food processor. I figure we do it right outside. It's nice and chilly. We got our meat from our deboned drumsticks and thighs. We have ½ ounce of gin. The juniper, what we're going with, duck and juniper is a beautiful combination. And this is our little mixture here of caraway seeds, some red pepper flakes, some garden sage, a little bit of salt and pepper. This is about 3/4 of a pound of duck here, so half in. So rough chopped pieces, make sure they're nice and cold. And now we're gonna take all of our spices and add them right into the machine. Now what we're gonna do now is we're gonna pulse half of this. Okay, now we put the other half in. Why do we do that, you ask? Just to make sure that all the spices are getting evenly incorporated in. Now, back on and let it rip for about 30 seconds. Every once in a while, you wanna just make sure you're wiping down the sides. You get all the spices, all the seasoning. We add our gin, just to loosen it up a touch. Want to make sure our gin is fully incorporated and emulsified into our paste. Now we're going to put our sausage, it smells unbelievable, into this bowl for right now, the same bowl that we had our cubed duck in. Now, if you're not doing this right away, you're going to want to put this right into the refrigerator. And again, this can be made ahead overnight and then worked the following day. We're going to stuff our duck and truss it right now. So duck has a ton of fat in its breast area, and in order for us to enjoy this roulade, we're going to need to render some of that out by scoring the breast. The next part is critical. You're going to need a very sharp knife. We're looking to just nick the membrane on top of the skin here, taking care not to cut too deep. Lay out your duck so it's easier for you to work with, and give me nice long strokes here with the knife, just nicking the skin. You're almost using the weight of the knife to carry the cut. Again, go nice and light. We're looking to just nick the breast, not cut into the flesh. If you see the flesh, you've cut too deep. Okay, now we're gonna score the duck breasts in the opposite direction, creating a beautiful diamond pattern. Okay, now we're gonna season the outside of the duck pretty liberally here with salt and fresh cracked pepper. Massage your seasoning into the crevices of the score marks. Now we're gonna flip our duck over and repeat the seasoning process. Now we're going to add our sausage, so make a channel right between the two breasts and try to make this piece here pretty uniform so it cooks evenly. Okay, now for the roll. Take one side, stretch it over like we're putting the sausage to bed. Now we're going to gently work out any air pockets here. This is also going to be critical. Next side, stretch and pull over. Again, pressing any air bubbles out. Take the bottom, pull up and over. Breast piece up and over to make a nice little package here. Now we're going to gently turn this over. Again, kind of tightening up, working out any air pockets that might be around. Cut a 12-inch piece of butcher's twine and carefully work it underneath the duck breast here. Now pull over and secure the duck breast with a loose knot here. Do not wrench down too tight on it, otherwise it's going to completely come apart. This is our establishing knot, and we're looking to just have this hold it together. Now we'll start trussing the duck in the opposite direction for a total of 3 pieces. Same situation here, nice and light knot, don't go too hard. We're looking to just hold this roulade together. All right, now that we have our duck beautifully trussed, we can transfer it to our roasting pan. Now, anytime you're cooking poultry or anything like this, you want to have a resting rack so you can elevate your bird so it gets complete heat around it so it can render out some of that fat. So what we're going to do is make a rack out of celery so it elevates the duck, but it also perfumes the duck with that celery flavor, and the celery will cook in that delicious duck fat, becoming crispy, and it'll be a great garnish later on. So I'm cooking this in my outdoor oven, but you would cook this inside of your oven for about 450 degrees for 20 minutes, and then you're going to reduce the heat down to 375 and let it cook for an additional hour and 15 minutes, or until an internal temperature is reached 135 degrees. All right, so let's take a look at our duck. Yeah, I mean, that looks fantastic. And I'm gonna say that I think, yeah, we're done. So now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove the duck so that it can rest for about 15 or 20 minutes. All right? Okay, so what we're gonna do now, while our duck rests, is I'm gonna take some of this beautiful duck fat here and save it for our next course that we're gonna do. Beautiful. I'm gonna take about 3 tablespoons. Okay, so now we're gonna let this go ahead and rest, and then we're gonna take our duck fat over here. We have our duck. Delicious, super rich. So I want to sort of contrast some of that richness with something light. Now, Brussels sprouts, we all know they're fantastic. They're a pretty traditional holiday vegetable. So instead of doing them roasted, because I usually like to take them to the stage of basically a heavy, heavy caramelization, we're going to do a nice light, raw, thinly shaved salad. For the vinaigrette, we're going to use a duck fat, and we're going to use apple cider vinegar, some raw onion, again, the acidity in there to kind of lighten it up a little bit, and salt. Very simple salad. Now this all can be done by hand, but I'm using a mandolin. If you choose to use a mandolin, just watch your fingers here. The key to using the Brussels sprouts and the mandolin here is making sure you're using the butt end or the stem end away from you. This will help hold the Brussels sprout together as you're shaving it. We're going to transfer our shaved Brussels sprouts to our bowl. There we go. So we're going to add our duck fat. That beautiful roasting juice in the bottom, along with that caramelized celery. So beautiful and floral. Onions. We're gonna start off with a good pinch of salt and see where we go from here. About a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. A few cranks of black pepper. Now, much like a kale salad, we're gonna go ahead and massage this all together. Since we're leaving in the cores of the Brussels sprouts, they're gonna be a little bit more toothsome. So we can get a little squeeze just like this to help tenderize it. Between the salt and the vinegar, this should do the trick. All right, let's taste it. That's good. We go a little bit more acid in here just to lighten it up. Very important to taste your food. Always taste your food. And just a pinch more salt. Massage again, and then we'll be ready to roll. Beautiful. Set that aside. Skin, crispy, fat rendered. First step, remove our strings. It's like unwrapping a Christmas present. Don't cut it too thin, otherwise all the heat will escape out of it. Look at your sausage right in the middle. Perfect for 4 people. 2 people with leftovers. 4 people for dinner. Gorgeous. Beautiful celery crackling right in the center to share with your friends or not. And there you go. Beautiful Thanksgiving feast.